The Indiana Hoosiers are national champions. Curt Cignetti, Fernando Mendoza, Luke Brenneman, national champions. They did it in year 2, Nick. I don't know. We're going into year 2 with Terry Francona. Should I have similar hopes that Terry's going to turn us around just like Curt Cignetti did?
Let's just get to the division series. Let's focus on that first.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. Chatterbox Reds. Appreciate you tuning in. Got a lot of fun stuff coming up on this episode. Obviously, we went live with the Gavin Lux news breaking. We'll follow up on that and talk about what's next. Plus, we've got some other updates going on with the Reds. But before we get to all of that, Nick, why don't you tell us about Omaha Steaks?
Yeah, it's a new year. It's a good time to make your life a little easier. I think that's my motto for 2026, making life easier, more convenient. And there's no better way to do that with premium meats and other great food items delivered right to your door with Omaha Steaks. Everything's packaged perfectly, fits very well in a tight fridge or freezer to get you all stocked up. I know that's one of my favorite things about Omaha Steaks. Craig, you love the pre-portioned meals. I know they have a great selection called Easy Anytime Meals. I know you've talked a lot. I know we've both talked a lot about the steaks and the burgers, but we haven't talked enough about all the other things they have. I was going on their website. I didn't realize how expansive their menu and items are. They've got salmon, lobster, ribs, pot roast, ham, smash burgers, chicken tenders, pork chops, steak fries, and even wines. I didn't know there was wines on the Omaha Steaks website. Really is something for everyone. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com and get an extra $35 off on top of their already great deals with the promo code CHATTERBOX at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code CHATTERBOX. Terms apply. See site for details.
All right. We went live last week, Nick. Breaking news, Gavin Lux traded to the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, the Reds in return get a relief pitcher, yet another relief pitcher, now one of the deepest position groups on the team. But what are we doing offensively? Gavin Lux traded away. Nick Kroll afterwards said, we're still looking to add to our position player group. What do you think that really means in Nick Kroll speak?
I mean, I think it means exactly what it says. I mean, I think it means they're looking to add. Now, I don't think that based on the way this offseason's gone, unless there's a trade that just really sort of falls in their lap, I think it's probably looking to add a player we're going to talk about in Miguel Andújar or someone of that nature. I would love for it to be like a trade for a guy like Yandy Diaz if you could make that work. Obviously, his price just might be so exorbitant that it doesn't make sense. That would be a fun Rays team if you add another Reds player to Gavin Lux and Jake Fraley and who do they have on the bench? They have someone else on the bench too, a former Red. But yeah, I doubt it's going to be the big splash that people are wondering. I think probably your best hope is that it's a good strategic fit, like maybe a guy like Miguel Andújar would be.
Ryan Valade rounding out the Tampa Bay Rays roster right now. Yeah, look, you mentioned it. Obviously, a trade would be great, but a familiar face apparently drawing interest from the club, Miguel Andújar. Unfortunately, though, the Reds aren't the only team showing interest in Andujar at this point.
No, I mean, he makes sense, especially if you're kind of looking for a platoon fit, either a DH or first base. I know the Cubs are a team that's mentioned there, and I got to be honest, I hate to say it, but he's like a perfect fit for the Cubs. They have a left-handed first baseman. They have a left-handed DH. Now, I know they've added some other pieces around that, but Miguel Andújar last year was a premium bat against left-handed pitching. So a team like the Cubs, he would make a lot of sense for, and I'm sure there's a lot of other teams across baseball that fit in that category as well. From the Reds' perspective, yeah, I mean, I loved Miguel Andújar. The problem is right now, as we've been told about how this roster is that Steer and Stewart are your first base DH for the most part. And they're both right-handed batters. They both hit better against left-handed pitching, or at least we expect they're going to hit better against left-handed pitching. So in a lot of ways, how would Miguel Andújar fit into that? Would you just completely remove Spencer Steer and put him out in left field? Would you not play Spencer Steer every day? I like Miguel Andújar a lot, Craig, but I don't want him blocking I don't want him blocking Sal Stewart, first and foremost, which would be my fear if you add him to this roster, because we saw that last year, right? You can't block Sal Stewart. Sal Stewart is one of the players, along with Elly De La Cruz, that has like that upside that, you know, we look at this lineup full of guys that are 90 to 110 WRC plus guys. Sal Stewart and Elly De La Cruz are the two that I don't think you have to squint too hard for them to get into the 120, 130, hell, even the 140 if everything goes right. So I can't block Sal Stewart. So it would have to be something that would make sense, and maybe it could be, you know, paired with a couple other moves.
I think it's interesting, you know, like he had a really good 2025, played 94 games, /318, 352, 470 with a WRC plus of 125. It was his best year that he's had in several years. And so it's hard to imagine that he's going to parlay a career best year to then return right back to Cincinnati. But maybe he comes back on yet another prove it deal, says, hey, come prove that this wasn't a fluke, prove that you're healthy. And hey, by the way, maybe we can get you some reps on defense. I think that's the biggest challenge for Miguel Andújar, is like, where does he fit in defensively? Because in limited outings last year, he posted a -7 outs above average at third base. And like, that's just not feasible for most teams. So he's got to be a pure DH, it seems like, which the Reds could use a pure DH, but what do other teams see him as? Where does he fit in with that? You know, he's probably defensively not a fit for some teams unless they're looking for a DH. And so for the Reds team who's looking for a solid bat, who doesn't necessarily need defense, I think it might actually be the best fit for him at this point.
Yeah, the issue is almost like that Austin Hayes signing, where it was a great signing in itself, but then Austin Hayes ended up playing every day against right-handed pitching, and he's not a good hitter against right-handed pitching. Miguel Andújar does not have a good track record against right-handed pitching outside of 2018. Last year was his best year against right-handed pitching, but you have to remember he was pretty much a straight platoon guy, and then he kind of got some additional at-bats against right pitching. I think it's fluky in a lot of ways. I don't think it's fluky, his ability to hit left-handed pitching. Now, if you were kind of pairing him with a Tolia, which I don't think any Reds fan want him to be penciled in as your DH, that makes a lot of sense. Left-handed bat that has the potential to mash, and Andujar. CES even, I know it's CES is reverse, but CES is a pretty long track record now. For whatever reason, CES hits better right on right than right on left. So it wouldn't be a like normal looking platoon, but that would work. But Sal Stewart and Spencer Steer both hit left-handed pitching better. So that's where it just doesn't match up to me. You'd have to, in my opinion, you'd have to move Spencer Steer. You'd have to be willing to sit other guys. So I don't know. For me, the Reds do kind of need to improve against left-handed pitching, because I was going down through their lineup, but they need like an outfielder more than a DH. Yeah. Like if Miguel Andújar could flat out play an outfield position, and you could have Dane Myers, and I really think that TJ Friedl should probably be a platoon player as well, but that's not going to happen either. So they just kind of keep getting pigeonholed here a little bit, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges for me, and this has been a challenge for a while now with the Reds, is that they're a team full of mid, right? And like, I don't know that anybody is like a surefire regardless of platoon splits. And like Miguel Andújar became almost the closest thing you had to a surefire like platoon player in terms of what he did to left-handed pitching last year. And for a team who's full of like mid or what ifs, like, it's the same reason I'm kind of on board with this idea of Luis Arraez, right? Like, because at least you know what you're going to get out of him. You don't have to worry about the ups and downs. You don't have to worry about like, can I throw him in there and just, you know, hope that something happens? You know what you're going to get out of him. Miguel Andújar seems similar in terms of when he's facing left-handed bats. He's been very solid against left-handed pitching for almost his entire career. So that's the one thing I would say is just like the consistency and the expectation from him from a platoon player position. Like, I just, as much as I want to believe in Sal Stewart and I want to believe in Noel V. Marte and I want to believe in all these guys, like, until they show it to me, it's hard to be completely bought into them getting every day at bats on one side of the platoon or another.
Yeah, I just, there's no way. Like, I would trust Sal Stewart far more than I would trust Miguel Andújar, especially against right-handed pitching. Again, like Miguel Andújar, if you're looking at like expected stats, he had a 291 xWOBA against right-handed pitching last year, which again kind of tells me that him having that mid 700s last year was more of a fluky thing. That's not really who he is. He's a guy that's a left-handed masher, and that's fine. I just think if you play him for a full season, or even like you play him 75% of the time and he's getting a lot of at-bats against right-handed pitching, I think he probably gets exposed in a lot of ways like Austin Hayes did. And the Reds can't afford, Craig, to waste any matchups. Like, you say they have a team full of mids. Well, you certainly can't waste any opportunities for any slight advantage. Like, the Reds need to be getting each and every platoon advantage that they possibly can with this roster to maximize it.
Yeah. Well, the question is whether or not they have the guys and whether or not Terry will actually implement a platoon. I think that's the thing is like Nick Kroll has continually built rosters around platoons and then they don't necessarily get used the way that you would expect them to get used last year. Makes it even more frustrating, to be quite frank. And so, to your point, I'd love to see Sal Stewart out there every day, regardless of who's on the mound, but I don't know what to expect from the managerial position. And, I mentioned it to you before, like, who's he going to fall in love with in 2026 that is going to start playing every single day that doesn't really have any business playing every single day?
Yeah, I just, Tito, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not. I just want you to think back to 2016 when you had Lonnie Chisenhall and Brandon Guyer as a beautiful platoon. Two players, probably a lot of people listen to this that are baseball fans don't even remember their names. That was a phenomenal platoon. It led you to the World Series. It led you one win away from winning the World Series. Like, we need that. We need a Lonnie Chisenhall, Brandon Guyer. Maybe two, maybe three of those.
Yeah. If you enjoy the Cincinnati Reds content, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Nick, Jim Bowden had some interesting comments earlier today. Well, Monday, I should say. Talking about Kyle Schwarber and specifically around the Reds spending the money that they had earmarked for Kyle Schwarber. And, as we're talking about the Reds adding players and going out and signing somebody or maybe via the trade, the question still remains, what happened to the Schwarber money?
Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day, and DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. Yeah, Jim Bowden's quote, they felt like he, talking about Schwarber, would bring to their clubhouse such a difference maker that they would want to extend for him. They didn't view other players on the open market similarly. I watched this clip and I honestly felt like Jim Bowden did not really explain this very well. And I mean, yes, it's a show. They're not really just talking about the Reds, so like give him a little bit of a pass. But like I think Jim Bowden was basically saying was implying to people that were watching that the Reds would have just decided for 2026, if they paid Schwarber 25 or 30 million, they would have done that, and it would have came out of thin air. I don't think that's how this worked. Like, and there's several people that have reported on this. If the Reds would have got Schwarber, they would have not gotten Ferguson. They would have not gotten Pierce Johnson. They probably would have traded Brady Singer or Tyler Stevenson. And so, like, they would have done all of those things. I don't think it was so it's like take 2026 out of it. Like, the Reds' payroll, and Nick Krall's even said this, wasn't going to go up for Schwarber. I think that the Reds, and this is where I think people are going to probably hate this, I think the Reds' ownership was willing to commit a long-term deal to Schwarber. They weren't willing to commit a long-term deal to a Pete Alonso, to any of those type of players. It was basically Schwarber was the guy because, and they said intangibles, I think it's more about marketability. I think they felt like they could market it better. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the 2026 salary had anything to do with Schwarber or not Schwarber, because they just would have reallocated those dollars completely different. I think it was basically Schwarber was the only player they were going to do a multiple year, and by multiple years I mean not one of these Pierce Johnson with an option year in the second half, like any a 3, 4, 5 year deal. It was Schwarber or no one else.
Yeah, well, I was talking to our friend Clay Snowden earlier today about this, and to your point, I think the intangibles comment that he made was strictly, he's from Cincinnati, fans will buy his apparel, they'll buy tickets to come see him. He's a needle mover as it pertains to fan interest. That's all they really mean with intangibles. They're not really talking about the locker room. They're not talking about what he brings as a leader. Yes, all of those things are great, but that's not the reason they're willing to extend the budget for him. It's because of the fans and the ticket sales and everything else that would go into it. Because at the end of the day, ticket sales is still the number one revenue driver for the Cincinnati Reds. And obviously, if they bring in Kyle Schwarber, I think the expectation would be that fans would follow. But more importantly, Nick, and this is what I said to Clay, and I think he agrees with me, and hopefully you do too. I don't know if you will or not. I don't think they ever expected to land Kyle Schwarber. I think that the $25 million offer that they had was completely performative. I think they knew that wasn't going to land Schwarber. They knew that he was ultimately going to get $30+ million. So they went out, they put together what many fans, including yourself, I think, would say is a competitive offer at $25 million, knowing that it wouldn't land Schwarber, and never actually intended to spend it at all. And I think it was one of those things where if he happened to come to Cincinnati and take that $25 million offer, they would scramble and figure out what to do. And to your point, maybe that's Brady Singer, maybe that's Tyler Stevenson, maybe that's something else. But they never intended to spend that $25 million, even though they offered it to Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think they legitimately wanted him. I think that he would have changed a lot of the perspective around the team, and I think that is important to the Reds' ownership. I don't know how.
I think there's a difference between wanting him and wanting to pay for him, though, Nick.
I think if they could have got him to agree to the deal that they offered or close to it, I think they would have been thrilled with that. I think they would have been able to find a way.
Well, yeah, of course you'd be thrilled to take somebody at $5 to $6 million below market value. But that's why they made an offer that was $5 million below market value.
Yeah, we also don't know really how far it was going to go, because basically the report was Schwarber said, I'm just going to go with the Phillies. And there was a report that there was some room still for the Reds to grow. So we don't know how far. That might have been another million. That might have been all deferred. We don't know what it was. I don't know. I think that they were. I think well, you just said it was all for show, and then you said they would have been happy if we would have taken the under $5 million. So which is it? Which is it, Craig?
Well, I can be happy if you take an offer, even though I don't expect you to. Like, I think here's the thing: is that it's there's a lot of parallels in life, right? Like, just because I make an offer doesn't mean that I expect you to take it or that I'm banking on you to take it, right? Like, I think, again, if they really wanted to land Schwarber, it's very hard to believe that $5 million would have been the difference in them saying yes or no. Like, if if they really wanted to land Schwarber, they could have gone out there and given him $30 million. That $5 million is not going to make a big difference. But they knew that Schwarber wasn't going to take 25. This whole room to grow thing was never really explored because there, as you mentioned, reports were that Kyle Schwarber told him not to bother with it, basically. And there's a couple things that go into that, Nick. I think one is, I think there was just interest in Kyle Schwarber and staying in Philadelphia. But two is that, to your point, I don't think Kyle Schwarber saw the path forward to winning a championship in Cincinnati. And I think all of those things play into Cincinnati's decisions. We're probably not going to be able to compete with the Phillies offer. We're probably not going to be able to compete with the team that the Philadelphia Phillies build around you. But hey, you can play in your backyard. Like, nobody realistically went into that negotiation expecting them to be able to say, hey, take $5 million less to play in your backyard and expect Kyle Schwarber to take that. I find that very hard to believe that would have been an offer that anybody would have expected Kyle Schwarber to accept. And at that point, it just becomes, well, we have to do it because our fans will blow us up if we don't at least make an offer. But let's make this competitive offer that he's not going to take, and let's just move on and say at least we tried.
We also don't know when the deals came. We also don't know if the Reds made the deal and then he went back to the Phillies. This was the Reds deal, and the Phillies then went above. We don't know that the Reds they didn't. I don't think they intentionally went $5 million under. I don't think they knew exactly what Philly was offering. Let's also not forget, coming into this offseason, all the predictions for what Schwarber would make were well below what the Reds actually offered him. Like, what was it?
They were all over the place. They were all over the place.
They were all over the place, but for the most part, they were not at $125 million. They were lower than that. So I don't think this was just a check off the box offer. I think the Reds made a serious run. They made a serious push. It didn't work out. And I will never know if the Reds could have kept trying to match and would have got there or not. We'll never know. But I don't know. I think they made a serious run at it. I think the conversation is, do you accept that Schwarber was the only guy they were going to offer a multi-year deal to or not? And that's I guess for the listener to determine if you want to be angry about that. But I think that's really what it comes down to, is that Schwarber was the only player they were going to do a multi-year offer for, and they weren't interested in anyone else.
I just find a lot of parallels between the Schwarber reported pursuit and the conversations around trade deadlines. And Nick Kroll always leans on there have to be two parties that agree on value. And, the deals just weren't there for us. We tried. Everything with Nick Kroll is, we tried. And this just feels like yet another one of those examples where Nick Kroll and Cincinnati Reds tried, quote unquote, to get something done and weren't able to.
Did make a couple deals at the trade deadline that did actually happen. One of the guys was the guy that we're talking about maybe bringing back.
All right, let's move on. Nick, we talked a week or two ago about changes with the TV contract. What's the latest on FanDuel Sports Network and the Cincinnati Reds? I saw at Reds Fest that FanDuel Sports Network had a booth set up. Is there still hope there that the team could be broadcast on FanDuel Sportsnet?
The never-ending saga. The latest report, FanDuel Sports Network is offering 3-year deals, which probably mean absolutely nothing. Like, they can be ripped up halfway through the year one of that deal. But they're offering 3-year deals to MLB teams that opted out of their TV agreement to return to the network, contingent on Main Street Sports Group, that's their parent company, finding a new buyer. So, again, from the Reds' perspective, we've mentioned before, it makes more sense for the Reds to try to ride this out as long as we can. As annoying as it is as a fan, it makes the most sense because they are going to make the most money with this. They would get significantly less if they get the games produced through MLB. Now, having said that, that's eventually what we all believe they're going to have to get to. So they're delaying the inevitable, but it would make them, I think, the most money to stick with it. The Reds are one of the most favorable TV deals for a company like FanDuel because the Reds' ratings based on their market is typically some of the highest. The Reds fans really watch the team. Maybe there's nothing else to do in Cincinnati or what it is. But, we'll keep you posted on this, Craig. If you ask me what ends up happening, I have no idea. I can see them being back on FanDuel. I could see them on MLB. I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Nick will have an update as soon as there is one from FanDuel Sports Network to make sure you know where to watch all of your Cincinnati Reds baseball in 2026. And Nick, while we were live discussing the Gavin Lux trade, other news broke from around the league, including Kyle Tucker signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers, a 4-year, $240 million deal for Tucker. But it sounds like the Dodgers may not be done.
Yeah, these guys just don't quit. They are aggressively pursuing a trade for Freddy Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers, according to MLB insider Hector Gomez, follower of Chatterbox Sports. So shout out to Hector Gomez, ball knower. Yeah, I mean the Dodgers they just get whatever they want. A couple ways to think about this. If the Brewers trade someone, usually it works out well for them in the long term. So if they trade Freddy Peralta, I wouldn't be celebrating too hard. Having said that, it's hard to imagine that they would be better in 2026 without Freddy Peralta. Certainly, I'm nervous to say, but it does lower their floor a little bit. He's kind of been their stable arm. I mean, they have all these, they mix and match pitchers better than maybe any team ever has. Like, they're incredible how they mix and match guys. They put them in as relievers and as starters, AAA, bring them up, bring them down. But Freddy Peralta's kind of been, at least the last couple years after Corbin Burns left, and they do still have Brandon Woodruff around, but he hasn't been around because he's been injured. He's kind of been that guy that's been that steady force for them. So it'd be great for the Reds in 2026, but it is a good chance it's not something that works out well for the Reds long term, because they'll just find a way to be better in the long term with trading him away, like they've done with everyone else.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised for the Dodgers to send a starting pitcher back to the Brewers in return for Freddy Peralta. The Dodgers' projected starting rotation right now, of course, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, and then competition for that fifth spot, Emmett Sheehan, Roki Sasaki. They have River Ryan down at AAA. They also have Kyle Hurt, Justin Robleski, Gavin Stone, Landon Knack, all on their 40-man roster. So depth is there for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that and figure out what exactly happens with the Milwaukee Brewers and Freddy Peralta. As always, make sure you stay tuned right here to Chatterbox Sports. Make sure you follow us on social media, follow us on YouTube. Drop us a like on this video if you haven't already. We've got great content coming to you all week long, every week, off the bench and the Stone Shields Show from 10 to 12 p. Of course, Chatterbox Bearcats, Chatterbox Bengals. We've got shorts, podcast episodes, the Flying Lion. All kinds of great content coming up, as always, on Chatterbox Sports. And of course, we've got a couple more episodes coming for you later this week with Chatterbox Reds as well. So appreciate you all tuning in. Till next time, for Nick Kirby, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Reds. We'll see you next time.